Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Swerve with Me. Swerve is a show where we have adult conversations for mature audiences only. I am your host, Miranda, and it's always a pleasure to have you join in tonight. As we come in and get ready for tonight's show, I want to do a couple of housekeeping things and tell you and remind you that beginning February next month, we'll be coming to you live on 360 Wise. It's a new channel, Debbie Bartlett's channel, and she has asked us to join her on that channel. So our market is yet expanding, and you are a part of that expansion. So we thank you so much for your support. You'll have to download an app. As I get the information, I'll give you more about how you can watch it either on Apple TV, Roku TV, Android TV. So our market is expanding, and people all over the world, literally in 30 different countries, now have access to our programming. And we are so happy that our tents are being enlarged and our market is expanding. So thank you so much for hanging with us. And then I want to remind you, I am super excited, guys, because February has been dubbed the month of love, relationships. We're talking all things relationships next month on Swerve with Me. So I'm talking to singles. I'm talking to multi-generational couples, some in their 60s, 50s, 40s, 30s, 20s, whatever generation they come to. We'll be talking to them. We'll be talking to some experts, some relationship experts, counselors. And so it's going to be a full gamut of conversation that we want to be able to strengthen relationships. We want to be able to guide and advise and give people red flags and encourage and prompt and do all those kinds of things to make sure that we have healthy family units at the end of the day, because we know that we're living in a world full of dysfunction. And so we want to remind you, don't miss a single night during the month of February, beginning next month, as a matter of fact. We will be talking all things relationship right here on Swerve. And so thank you so much for that. So as you come in, make sure to share the tonight's live stream, because tonight we'll be talking to someone who has an amazing story, as all of our guests do. And each story is unique in its own particular way. But I want to present and introduce to some of you Brenda Harris-Pinder. Brenda is a young lady who comes and hails from the over the hill neighborhood where most of us come from, who were born or raised in Nassau, and she has overcome tremendous challenges. So she is a prototype guest for our show. She's not afraid to show her scars, guys, and she is going to speak her truth. She's found her voice, and as a result of her finding her voice, she has now positioned herself to be able to help others to find their voice. Brenda has dubbed herself, when I asked her, as I often ask every guest coming on the show, how would you like me to bill you, or to, in terms of bill you in lights, as we call it, or your title, what title you would like to use? And at first she said, you know what, I don't need a title. And then she simply came back and said to me, you know what, defender of the people. And so we're going to get into that a little more in the show. But tonight, please help me welcome to the first time to this platform, Brenda Harris Smith. Good night. Pinder, sorry, I'm sorry. Where did Smith come from? Forgive me, Mr. Pinder.
No,
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
thanks for having me. And good evening, Bahamas, and good evening to the nations. It is awesome, and it's great to be in your presence. Thank you for having me.
It's certainly a pleasure to have you here. Your story is one of those that I call of great perseverance. You had challenges. Your challenges started young, at an early age. Things happened to you not of your own making, but you are a classic example of someone who took lemons and made lemonade, and not only made the lemonade, but started a lemonade business. And you're the owner and the CEO of that business. And that is the typical type of people that our show this attracts. So thank you for being here. So tell us a little bit about your background, where you were raised, and what was life like for little Brenda Harris?
Okay, so born in 1970, to Cecilia Walker Harris and George Harris, who is deceased. My father died when I was 3 years old, and my oldest sibling was nine, and the youngest one was 6 months, and it was eight of us actually. And my childhood was really good, despite that there was some traumatic events that took place. I was molested between the age of 9 and 11 by my stepfather, and so I always protected my two younger sisters behind me to ensure that nothing happened to them. And so, but growing up in the family, we were on the welfare line. We lived in Coro Avenue in the Grove. I went to Yellow Elder, Essie McPherson, and CC Sweeten, a graduate of the Cobras. I'm
Oh,
proud to
yes.
be Go Cobras.
Yes.
And so I also had a scholarship to go to St. Augustine's College, SAC, the big red machine that everybody so excited about, being an alumni of the big red machine of SAC. But I declined to go because I know that if I did, it would have caused my mother undue stress trying to figure out how to get me there and back. And then there were so many other siblings. So I said to her, you know what, Mom, it doesn't matter, because it doesn't matter what school I go to, I will be successful. So
Absolutely.
so I determined to go there, to go to CC Speaking, because actually when I was at Essie McPherson, um, I did we get into little rambles, when you're younger. And I determined that I was not going to go to A. Vadley, where I was supposed to go, because that was
Mhm.
the matriculation. You were supposed to go from Essie to A. Vadley. But I determined if I went to A. Vadley, that I would have got myself into problems, that it would not have been in best interest. So I determined, you know what? I want to go to CC Sweden. And because also to the curriculum that they had there, the curriculum where I've been able to get right into the business stream, because I always knew that I wanted to be an accountant, because I love numbers.
Mhm,
And so,
mhm.
and so
So
that's,
you said a lot in your introduction, and now I'm gonna do what I do, and that is to kind of peel back the layers. And one of the things that I recall you saying was that you were molested at the age of 9 by your stepfather. What are your memories of that occasion, and if you can recall, how did it make you feel uh, when it happened? How did he approach you? How frequent did it happen, etc.?
how it made me feel. First of all, I I really can. At that time, you know, first he thought it was just showing love, because it was oral sex. He used his fingers and his tongue, and what he did was like we had, because my two younger siblings, because that's my youngest sister's father, and so he would play with all of us, and I just thought it was all a part of that, until I think when I got probably about age 11, I'm like, okay, this is not something is wrong with this.
Hmm.
And so and so I kind of guarded myself, or I stayed away. Like I hated him, actually. I didn't want to be around him, and so I would not go, and I would always try to keep my two younger sisters with me. So I had a kind of like a hatred towards him, because of what he had done, and so I would stay away from him.
And
and
these
and, and
occasions would occur when your mother was at work. She was out of the house at the time.
Yeah, she was out of the house. Yeah, she was out of the house. And sometimes, like, he owned a bus service, so he would take us on the bus. And my younger siblings also went, oh, why are you always taking you, Brenda? But I tried to shield them from what was happening. I didn't share that. I didn't share it with my mom. I didn't share it with my mom until I was probably about almost 30. I didn't confront him until about probably 7 years ago. I confronted him, and I said, why would you have done something like that to a child? Why did you do that to me? And he played as if that, like, he didn't know. I said, don't play as if you don't know. You know what you did to me, and you know it was wrong. It was wrong.
Mhm,
Why did you do that? Why did you invade my innocence? I said, why
mhm,
would you have done that to a child? And he couldn't look me in the eye. But, after having that discussion with him, I felt so much better. And
mhm,
what led me to that is that the church that I used to attend, Epic Church, which is now Legacy, we were dealing with inner healing. And so, all of these, sometimes we suppress a lot of memories. We push, especially women, we push it to the back of our minds so that we don't focus on it. And so as we start to think, and all of these memories came up, and then I saw him, and I always wondered why I had this, like, I just didn't, this disdain for him, and I just couldn't stand to be in his presence. And so I said, you know what? Because we said either you write it down, write a note, or if the person's still alive, confront them. And I had that opportunity, and I did just that. And I was able to close that door. I was able to confront those demons and really put it behind me, not the back of my mind, but behind me.
Great, awesome. If you're just joining us, welcome. I'm talking to Brenda Harris-Pinder, a defender of the people, and she's sharing her early stages and how she was molested at a very young age by her stepfather and how she's overcome. Did this molestation impact you in terms of your schoolwork day to day? Because at that stage you would have been in primary school. Can you recall lashing out at anybody else, or you just seem to be able to manage it?
I think I managed it because I was always just defending my two younger siblings, so it was always a defense mode for me with regards to them, just being protecting them, ensuring that they were okay. And I was just okay because I just dealt with things as they came. I just felt that the Lord had guided me and was directing my path. And so it really didn't affect my schoolwork because I was in the top stream. I had good grades. I pride myself that my mom didn't have to come to school. I didn't have to, because I always wanted to make her proud, and so normally, even if I had I may have gotten in trouble once or twice, but I was able to reason with the principal actually and my case before them. And it was always justifiable. And I know sometimes, like, my husband would say that I always have an answer for everything, but I just can't help me. That's how God wired me. So, I was able to handle that during my it didn't affect my schoolwork.
So what about you matriculated from primary school, of course, into secondary, junior high school, that we call it middle school, others call it. What was life like at that stage of your education? Did any anger and resentment begin to manifest at that level? Because I noted that you mentioned something about you felt if you had gone to a particular school, you might have gotten in trouble. So do you now, in hindsight, see any connection between what had happened to you and the way you responded or reacted to certain encounters?
Well, I think too that's the exposure in the home and in the surrounding as well. Where you may have adults that were using profanity. But the thing about it is, with my mom, we rise at dawn at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning for prayer. So she really had instilled in us discipline and godly principles, and she's very strict. And so, like when you have little parties or you have different events that's happening, I would tell my schoolmates, I said, don't even bother to invite me because I can't go, because I knew it was a no and it didn't make sense. And so only things that I used to do really was I was very, very active in sports. So I was really, because I was most valuable player at CC Sweden, and I also played at junior high level as well. And so it was, I think it could have been a connection, but like I said, it was the environment. And children at that age, they're exploring. Sometimes the things that they say, it's not all of the best, even though they're out of the presence of their parents. But nonetheless, I realized at an early stage that was not the direction in which I should be going in if I wanted to really succeed. I mean, my grades didn't hamper my grades. I was brilliant in junior high school. I was an A student really, and so it didn't hamper that. But I knew because on several occasions, like I was just persons would come and come up into my face to try to confrontations that I tried to, and conflicts that I tried to avoid. I mean, just for no apparent reason, they just, it would pick on me. And I always defended myself.
Okay.
And I knew that going to that particular school, that it would only increase, and it did. And I know that I was going to defend myself. I wasn't going to bow down. And so I had to make a decision that either I go to A of Adley or I go to CC Sweeten. And I determined that, you know what, let me go to CC Sweeten, because too, as I looked at the curriculum was, to me, it was much better for what it is that I wanted to do. And I just want to, I give thanks to my grade 3 teacher, Miss Hannah, because, self-love is so important. And I think that played a key role in me being able to overcome some of that trauma. And so she would say, look in the mirror and look at yourself and say, self, I love you. And so, like I always tell people, I know one thing, if nobody does, I know God loves me and I love myself. And so it's important that we have that self-love and that we teach that to our children, because if we don't love ourselves, we are unable to love others, and we are unable to receive the love of God. So that is key in having a self-worth, high self-esteem, that confidence that you need to be successful in what it is that God has purpose and planned for you to do.
So let's go back a little bit more, because the molestation lasted for a year, a few months. How long did it last? And
between the age, I think it was until I got into junior high school.
Okay.
Junior high
So
school.
at that stage, was he out of the home and gone, or was he still there?
Yes, actually, yes, he was gone. Yes, he was gone. So
Okay.
that played a part in it as well. He was gone.
Okay.
And so he would just stop by to see my sister, and but it wasn't frequent, and I, like I said, I stayed away from, I avoided him at all costs.
When you finally had the conversation with your mother to tell her what happened, what was that like? And how old were you when you found the courage to actually have a conversation with her?
Well, that like I said, but between the age of 25 to 30, and we had the conversation, but I think there was still a denial, unbelief, or as like, why did I say anything, or are you sure that happened? And I think it comes back to guilt, because I would say that because I knew, like, when my daughter was raped, when, I mean, I'm jumping, but just to give a parallel, when my daughter was raped at the age of 14, I was away doing my exams, there was this guilt that came over me, that I was not able to protect her. And so it's not really, so from my mother's perspective, it's not really that she didn't believe me, but it was the fact that she was not able to protect me from going through that. And so as I saw how it made her feel, I didn't go into the conversation too long, because like I think I may have mentioned it before, or our previous conversation, is that I always wanted to make my mother proud. And so I know that her life was not the easiest one. It was really a traumatic life experience that she has had. And I always wanted to make that easier for her, because I saw the toil, and I saw how hard she worked to ensure that we were able to have what it is that we need in order for us to be successful. Yes, we may not have had much, but she gave us all that she could. And I always tell her, like, I know, like, when I was in Cayman Islands, when I was working in the Cayman Islands, I would call her as I sat and I lay down, and I just thought about my life. And I call her and say, Mom, you did an awesome job. I had a good childhood. I enjoyed my childhood. Despite it all, I enjoyed my childhood, because I knew that my mother loved me. I know she loved me, and I know she did the best that she could have done with what she had, and so I'm thankful for that, because I know that as a mother, and then being a single mother, and see, my father died on my mother's birthday. So, you could imagine that, and had a 6-month-old and the oldest child 9. My God, that in itself was traumatic, And so I tried, I like I used to tell them, I was a good child. Because I always tried to stay out of trouble. I really tried to stay out of trouble. I tried to ensure that my grades were good, so that she was pleased, and so I was always self-determined. I had that self-determination to be successful and make something of myself. And then also to with the family too. Family sometimes they say some things to children that shouldn't be said. You know, oh, y'all have on the same clothes again. Y'all doing that, or y'all can never amount to this. You know what I'm saying? Because we were fatherless. But I thank God He looks out for the fatherless. And so for that perspective, that even propelled me to be more self-determined. Because at the end of the day, when people say these things, the best way to deal with that is show them better than you can tell them, by improving yourself, by being the best you that you can be. And not allow them, because your circumstances and your environment does not dictate your altitude or your journey in the destiny and your destiny. Only you can limit yourself. And so I realized that as a child. And so that was in the forefront. I did my best at everything that I put my hands to, because my mother always says, if you're going to do something, you're going to do it well. Give it your best. And so it's worth doing well. So it doesn't make sense if you're going to do something and you don't give it your best. Because that's how I even brought my book up as well. Because I said to her, one time she came, she had a C on a report card, and she was crying. I said, well, honey, did you do your best? Was that the best that you could have done? And she said, yes, ma'am. I said, are you sure? I said, because if that's the best that you could have done, that's okay. And we will work on it so that you can improve and bring that grade up to what it's supposed to be. And that's what we did.
You mentioned your daughter several times. Let's roll it back and talk about a little bit about her and the fact that at 17,
yes,
you were just recently out of high school.
Yes, just recently out of high school.
Yeah, out of
And
high school. So
and
let's
so
let's
with,
talk about it.
yeah, so recently out of high school, um, my older sister had introduced me to my daughter's father. At that time, he was a pilot from Exuma, and I really didn't like him at first, because I really had no plans for boyfriend and sexual relations, because that was not my focus. I had my life planned and charted out. About 40, 45 was about that time. I'd say, okay, fine, because I just had plans to the jet set out of this country and just do what it is that I wanted to do, right? But what happened, what transpired, we were in the relationship with him, and he was about 6 years older than I, and and so many times we would spend time together, and he would, I'm like, I'm not ready for sex. I don't want to have sex. I'm not ready for that at this point, right? And what happened is, like, he kind of tricked me with regards to I went by his mother's place where he was, and no one was home at that time. And so he pulled me in the room, and then just when his little sisters, they came home from school. And so at the same time, that's when he raped me, actually. And as it wasn't the how it happened, I was not able to scream out. I didn't even know. It's just so many different mixed emotions that was going on. And it happened again, and it's on the second, third time that it happened, because I was not because I even had suppressed the memory, because I was shamed because I got pregnant. I was shamed, humiliated, could not believe that, because it was not my plan. And I kind of suppressed that as well. It was a memory that I suppressed, where I was like, okay, he raped me. I had a baby. I was not ready for that. And the thing about it is, like, during my pregnancy, I cried every night. I cried every night, because I could not believe that this was happening. That was my life, that it was happening to me. And so,
Now, 1 minute, 1 minute. So even after he raped you, you at 17, you never told anybody.
No, I never told anyone. No, I didn't.
Do you know why? Do you know at this point why you didn't mention it? Was it because of the embarrassment that you were feeling?
Yeah, I think it's the embarrassment, as well as that I've always been where I fight my battles, and I try not to be a burden. But I think too, the humiliation and the embarrassment was part of it as well. Because even with that, like my mom, when she found out, I don't know how she found out, I don't know who told her, but she said, Brenda, are you pregnant? And I'm like, yes, ma'am. you know, and she didn't
Mhm.
speak to me during the entire pregnancy. She
How
just totally
far along? How far along were you when she just approached you one day and asked you? Were you
I think,
showing or something?
no, the thing about it is, no, I probably was about maybe 3 months or so, because my stomach didn't show until it was almost time for me to have the baby, probably about in the late 8 months term. Yeah, because
Wow.
I actually prayed to the Lord that I don't have a stomach, because I was really embarrassed. I was really embarrassed, and I cried. I cried every night. I could not believe that it actually happened to me. I
Mhm.
cried. I cried. And when I went into labor, and then I was like, Jesus, how is this baby supposed to be coming out? Even though you know in school you learn about the in biology, but it was like, and then
Mhm.
during that time, a lot of mothers who are giving birth, they died. They died in childbirth. So I was
Mhm.
petrified. You know, I'm like, God, what is this? You know, and I'm like, why is this happening to me? What did I do wrong? You know?
Mhm.
And so when I had her, I just lay there, just shell shocked. Like, is this truly happening? And I just
Mhm.
looked at her. And so the nurse said, aren't you going to take your baby up and feed her? And I looked at her, like I had nothing to say. I was just like, I was just in disbelief. And
Mhm.
that lasted like for probably like a month or so. And that was just before I had lost my sister. And so after my sister died, like I just cling on to my daughter, and that became my top priority to ensure that I be a good mother to her, and that you know, growing up without a father was not something that I wanted, because I know the experience not having a father figure. I mean, my father
Mhm.
dying when I was 3 years old. And it's important, you know, to have that father figure there. I never wanted to be a single mother, because it was not easy. It was not easy being a single mother, and the challenges that I faced along that journey. My daughter's now 32, and I'm very proud of the woman that she is today, and it came with sacrifice. I
Mhm.
remember at COB, now the University of the Bahamas, I took my daughter with me in classes. I had to take her with me to the class. And so I know one of my accounting teachers said, this is not a nursery. And, my mom was always, they call me feisty. So I said to him, I said, is she disturbing the class? No. I said, we are paying you to teach, to lecture. So why don't you do that? And you're supposed to, so that I can learn, and I will do that. You teach and I'll learn. And my daughter's here. She's very quiet. She's not disturbing anyone. And I'm not going to miss my class just because I can't have some place to keep her, to ensure that my daughter's safe. And so he said, Brenda. I said, no, Mr. Don. I think it was a Don. I can't remember his name right now. But I said, no. I said, I'm not disrupting the class. So let's continue on with the lesson. And
Mhm.
that
So
was it.
how old was your daughter at that point when you were enrolled in college?
Yeah, that she would have been about probably 3, 5 months.
Oh, wow. So you
Yeah,
didn't even, this is amazing because you didn't really skip a beat, even though you had her at such an early age. You still enrolled in college and pretty much went on with what you had planned, except now you had somebody else to be responsible for. What was
absolutely.
that like day to day? What was that like day to day?
Okay, so
Because
I
you're
had
still 17, 18. What was that like?
it was it was hard. It was hard, but it was a challenge. But nonetheless, I was determined to do it. I worked and I went to school, because now I had to find a job. And then people always wondered. I mean, one of my first jobs, one of my first permanent job was at Majestic Tours. And I look at the landscape and I said, okay, I won't be here that long. And so there were several opportunities where I was able to get into the offshore banking, and but my priority was always my daughter. So I worked hard, I put in my hours, and I ensure that my daughter was taken care of. I would catch the bus, drop her to the nursery. I'll catch the bus and go back to work, catch the bus, pick her up, drop her to a caretaker to ensure that by the time I get off, and that's what I did. I knew, like, when I worked at Ernst & Young, They had changed the policy. They said you can't take lunch at 3 o'clock. And so I didn't go to my manager. I went straight to the managing partner and I said, do I need to look for another job? I said, because when you hired me in the policy, and you know that I said that I have a daughter and that I have to pick up and I have to take my lunch hour at this time. I said, now when you look at this policy, did you consider the mothers that you have working with you? I said, because now if it's gonna hamper me, and my daughter needs to be safe, because if she's not safe, I cannot function. I said, now do I need to look for another job? So they said, Brenda, no, calm down. I said, no, but see, these are the things that we need to think about before we put these
Yeah.
policies in place. You know,
Mhm.
because I used to catch the bus from Ernst Young when it used to be on Shirley Street to go into what's the name of the place? Geez, Elizabeth Estate, to Thelma Gibson. And then I would take her and I'll walk her down to the caretakers, catch the bus and go back to work. And then do that again at the end of the day. But it was something that I had to do. I didn't have a choice because I need to make sure that she was able to go to school, that she was to school on time, that she was secured in the evenings after school while I had to go back to work. And I needed to work so that I can support her. And I wanted her to have the best education. And so I did that. Several jobs. I worked long hours. I was really dedicated to my work. I loved what I did. But at the same time, I had to strike a balance to ensure that my daughter was able to have a good education, make sure she went to private school. And so I had to take turns. Like when I had in private school, I had to, my studies came to a stop after I had completed my associate degree. I think it was about 7 years to complete an associate degree. But
Wow.
nonetheless, I completed it, but it wasn't easy. But I pressed in, I persevered, because every time on every job that you go to, they always move the goalpost. They said you can't get any higher because you don't have this and you don't have that. So I was
Mhm.
determined to get my certifications, to get my degrees, so that I would be able to be in a better position. And so when I went on the various jobs, I was not on the jobs. People may have said that I was unstable, but it wasn't that. I always had a plan. Because if I went on a particular job and I had exhausted the learning experience,
Mhm.
or if at that particular time uh, compensation was more important, then I would move for that. So I would look at it from that perspective, because I
Mhm.
know what my purpose, what my goals were, and in order to meet those goals, certain things needed to be in place. And so that's how I did. And they said, Brenda, you always have a plan. I said, yes, I always have a plan, but I want to say those plans. I made those plans, and you have to make the plan, write it down, and make it clear, because everything that I planned for, it came into fruition. And it's not that I had any, I didn't have, I was not born with a silver platter or a gold spoon in my mouth, but I
Mhm.
was determined and I used my faith. I exercised my faith. I remember when I got my house, initially when I had made a down payment, they came back and said, this was for the government home. They came back and said, all of a sudden I didn't qualify even after I went to pick up the house and they had already the down payment. But I use my smarts in the way that to get it, you have to know how to negotiate and to leverage what's in your hand.
Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
my mom, she had a property. I really didn't want, I wanted to go behind a gated community, but my mom had this property where she didn't want to, they didn't approve her to do rentals, do a rental property. It was a residential area. And so what I did was I did a deed of gift, and then I got a loan using that, which incorporated the payment for the land as well. And so we have to just we have to be smart in the way we do things. And then we also have to pay it forward so other persons know how that they can be successful. It's not just me. You
So you said so many things. You said like two mouthfuls in all of that. And the thing that I get based on your experiences thus far was there was obviously an ability to set goals, to work those goals until they came into fruition. There was also a perseverance that no matter what obstacles or challenges come your way, I'm going to still press forward. You obviously learned and sharpened negotiation skills on the job. In position, there was a boldness, and obviously, you innately had a voice and you used it because, but beyond that, I'm reflecting on the conversation on the job with talking to them. You must have been an excellent worker because there was absolutely no way when you would have gone to the managing director or whomever and asked, should you be looking for another job, that they wouldn't have said to you, go right ahead, had you not been valuable. Had you not been valuable. So I don't want to skid over that.
Right.
I don't want to skid over the fact that you must have been a very valuable worker for them, employee for them, in order for them to be able to take into consideration what you were saying to them and perhaps even rethink the policy that they had implemented. So I think that's very, very important to note. Also, you mentioned your sister who died. And I want to get to this part of the story because of the impact that it ultimately has had on your life, and in part why you do and have done some of the things that you do. So tell us about your deceased sister, her name, and the circumstances of her death.
Okay. So my sister, that's Roxana Rowe. She died when she was killed when she was 20, when she was 28. And prior to that, I had my niece had died at the age of 5. And 3 months after that, my favorite brother, Alan Harris, he died one. He just wake up in a puddle of blood, and he was in the hospital for 3 months, and he died. Aplex anemia. It was due to the sun rays. He was a policeman, and doing duty on downtown on Bay Street without a shade on direct sunlight. So that damaged that. So for me, I had already, and that happened in 86. And so for me, my 11th year was kind of rocky because I was just devastated. And so in 89, and my sister was the source of strength. She was like the nucleus of our family. And
Mhm.
so in 1989, during the Easter holiday, on that Good Friday, my brother-in-law, he was a butcher at City Market. His name was Jeffrey Roll, and he called me actually. He called and he said that, Brenda, I'm going to kill your sister. And I'm like, what? He said, I'm going to kill your sister. I'm going to kill her. And so I told my sister, she was a police reservist and she also worked at NASA underwriters. And I said, Roxy, you have to be careful. Jeff said he's going to kill you. She said, girl, I ain't got no time for this. But the thing about it, let me go back a bit. Uh, the relationship, she was in that relationship with him from she was 14. And it was abusive. And I was at the point, like I said, okay, Roxy, why is it that you're allowing this to happen? Because I was like, why? You know? And she
How
just
much?
like, and my brother,
Just a minute. How much older was she than you? How much older?
she was that's 3 and 8, but 11 years older than I am.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so the thing about it is, when I told her that, she just dismissed because she had already determined that she was getting a divorce because she had the last time he had knocked on her or abused her, she had determined that that was enough, and she retaliated, and so he would just make a lot of noise around her head and all of that stuff. But she determined, what, it didn't make any sense. She was going to get a divorce, and so she had put in for divorce, and he was upset. So she had moved out with the children, and they were by my mom. They were by us, and so on that holiday, when after the Easter Monday, that Tuesday after Easter Monday, she was going to take my daughter with her back to her house to get her clothes and stuff. So she took her 2 kids with her, and I told her, I said, no, don't take my baby. Let her stay. When I get off from work, we'll come with you and we'll come and help you, right? So by the time I got to work, I'd gotten a call that my sister had gotten killed. So apparently the neighbor called my brother-in-law at work to let him know that my sister was home in the house. And so when he came there, he bashed her head in. He shot her 3 times in the head. He had raped her. He had carved out her private parts, and he burned her from the waist go down. And then after that, he took my niece and my nephew and he drove over Clifton Pier. It so happened that some young men were in the area and they saw when he drove over the cliff, and so they were able to pull my niece out. Now my niece was at that time, she was about 9 and my nephew was about 12, and so I know my nephew was very feisty, and he would fight back, and so he had to have knocked him out that they didn't see him. And then when my sister had clothes in the car, he was buried under that, so they didn't see that he was in the car. So they were only able to pull her out, and he was trying to pull her back in the car. And
Wow.
so, but they were able to get her out. He died on the way to the hospital. So my niece survived, but my nephew died. He succumbed. Because they after me, everybody said, "Where is Keto? Where is he?" And then they when they pull up the vehicle, he was in there underneath all of the clothing, and so that was very, very, I mean, that was like a nightmare. I could not believe that happened. And like I said, my sister was like the nucleus of the family because we were a close-knitted family. And after that, we kind of everybody went their own way. And so it really, really, really disrupted, because like when my mom was at work, it was my sister who was in charge. So she was the mummy to us. And so that
When you
really
got the news, when you got the news, because I cannot even imagine what would get. Can you remember you were at work and you got a call at work
at work. And they just
from
say, mhm. I can't even remember who it was on the next line. All I know, they said that Roxy got killed. You need to come home now. That's what they said. And so when I started to scream, someone took the phone, and then someone in the office said, "I need to control myself." I'm like,
mm,
really? I was so annoyed, but it was devastating. And what made it even more devastating for me was the fact that one of my sisters is a nurse, and so we went down to the hospital after, because the coroner took her down to the morgue, and I wanted to see her. And the thing is, I just saw her. That's how I'm able to describe what happened to her. And that really, like, seeing her body laying there in that state, just the thing that somebody would do that. And my sister was the sweetest. She was the sweetest gem, the sweetest lady that you could find. She had such a generous and loving spirit, and that really, I'm like, I could not believe it was so surreal. I could not believe that was actually happening, and that
what
he would
was
do
the
that.
visual? Did you replay the visual of that in your mind, and how were you able to see that and process that to even get through that initial period? Do you remember what was that night like? What was the next day like?
I cried all through the night. I cried, and I just hold on to my and I said, in hindsight, I said, God works everything together for our good, because my daughter, my baby, I just hold on to her. It was like I latched onto her, and that was my source, because she would, children just say that, I mean, just the smile and just, just kissing me up, and that really gave me solace. And
Mhm.
because I cried, I just couldn't believe it. Like, I just started in the last 10 years really to really recognize and to really talk about it more, about what transpired with her, because it just was devastating. I just couldn't believe it. It was like a nightmare.
Mhm.
How could that be possible? And we had so much plans to do so much things together, you know, like
And
we
then
had
what
planned.
about her daughter? I'm sorry. What about her daughter? What about her daughter who survives?
Yes, it was
Uh,
really, that was devastating for her. She did counseling. She still had some challenges. And I think that, the counseling, when we think about counseling and the effect on person's lives, on their lives, it is, I don't think you ever get enough counseling, because,
mhm.
sometimes certain things could just trigger it off. And I
Yes.
know we flocked around her to protect her and to show her love, but it was still that. And then the thing about it is too is, my nephew had tried to call us to warn us as to what was happening, and she hung up the phone. So it could even be guilt. And then not only that, she at one point she described what happened when they were going over the cliff, and described when he came out of the room how he was covered with blood, and they were saying, "Where's mommy?" And that they heard the shots, that went off, and so just having to really go over that in our head. Sometimes she act out, even I think sometimes even now I don't know if she has fully really healed from that.
Sure, sure. The
Yeah,
the, the trauma is obviously overwhelming, and it's not just a one time go to a counselor or 2 months, 3 months. I really believe something so traumatic outside of something miraculous, and even in having a miracle and a miraculous deliverance from God, it's still important to have that sounding board to talk about
absolutely,
your
absolutely.
experience and to be able yet another defining moment in your life and the life of your family as you're walking through and dealing with the death of your sister, the death of your brother, the sudden death of your brother, sudden death of your sister, and all of these unexpected, and the death of another niece. What kind of impact in hindsight do you see overall in your family unit? Did it have? Did it draw you all closer together? Were you separate and responded differently because you just didn't know how to process it, how to cope? What can you see now in the family dynamics?
Well, now in the family dynamics, it's we're not close like we should be. It has pushed us in different directions, in different directions, and yeah, yeah, because even after it happened for me, I went incognito for 3 years really, because I just didn't know how to deal with it. I just didn't know how to deal with it. And so I just focus on my daughter, and I focus on work and my studies, and so that's what I did too. I said it's just a dream. Maybe I may wake up and something else should be there. I just couldn't. It took me a long time to really get a hold of what was happening, to really try to deal with that, because I didn't
Mhm.
even want to deal with it, because I didn't want to believe
Right.
that she was gone, because that was like, I mean, like when you see her, you see me. I was there, and she was just so special. And I think too, uh more or less, like, I'm a loner, and so really, even with that, as I even think about it, it's you never ever get over it,
Mhm.
and it's always different. And she was really a special, special woman, and she was full of love, and no one deserves that. No one deserves
Mhm.
a death like that, and then the sad thing, what happened is, probably like about 3 years later, one of her best friends was killed in a similar manner. you know
Wow.
and so that is a stronghold in our nation, that we have to pull it down and tear it down. you know
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
even in my family, I realized too that that was like a generational curse, because one of my sisters, her husband was abusing her, and so I had to step in. We had to step in because I said, not on my watch. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I know I was engaged to a defense force officer, and while I was at COB, like, he was watching me. I was talking with my classmate. Yes, some of them happened to be men. I prefer to be in the company of men. I think it was too had something to do with my sister's death as well. And he was watching me. And so anyway, and I saw him in the distance. I said, "Oh, let me go. My fiance's there." And he didn't live too far. He lived to the corner opposite the Guardian. And so when I went there, like when we went there by him, he dragged me into the house. He had a cutlass to my neck, and he threatened me. And so I know that, like I said, I'm very feisty, and I always have an answer. But I
Mhm.
saw a demonic force in him. Like, all of a sudden,
Mhm.
he had changed his whole facial expression and everything. Like, all of a sudden, it was dark. And so I
Mhm.
didn't say anything to him. I remained silent. I let him speak. I didn't say anything. I just listened. And eventually he calmed down, and you could see the spirit was gone, right? And then I said to him, I said, this is not gonna work. I'm gonna leave, and that's it. So I bound him over the piece. I didn't speak with him. I think I didn't speak to him maybe 5, 7 years. I didn't speak to him. Like, he would call to try to and he would send flowers, he would do this, he would do the next thing, but I refused to. I refused to do that because I know I've been there firsthand. I've seen my brother-in-law call me to say that he's going to kill my sister. Then my other brother-in-law was beating on my sister. No, no,
Are,
and so I
are
stand up.
are there any triggers that you can identify moving ahead for you as you just go about day to day or in the past? Were there any triggers that would cause you to remember the trauma or anything even for your other family members because you all as a family experienced this tragedy?
The thing is, my niece, my niece, she looks just like my sister. So it was it was always difficult. But one of the things is when they pulled my nephew out of the water, and they had it on ZNS. There is a song, a whole new world, and I really loved that song. I don't listen to it because anytime it plays, it brings up all of the memories, and I just break down crying, you know. And so for me, that really, it brings it back like a flood, like it just happened. And
Mhm,
so, but over the years, I mean, the healing process. And another thing I should say too, like when people, it was not being insensitive when people may have lost a loved one. I would feel that sympathy for them. But then I said, well, they killed, I mean, they crucified Christ, and my sister gone, they kill her. My brother-in-law kill her. So it's kind of like,
a detachment. You were
yeah,
detaching yourself at that time.
exactly. So yeah, and then I know I said, okay. After I said, I have to really, that's not the right way. And I said, perhaps maybe let me. I said, Father, help me to be compassionate, and use the situation that my family would have faced to understand what people go through. So and then also to, I mean, based on the ministry that He has given me, of healing, like
Mhm,
I feel the hurt. So if they have a pain in their stomach or a pain in their, I can feel that. Like I feel that. And so
mhm,
I understand. And it's always different. And the thing about it is too, when someone has lost a loved one, it is always best just to just give sympathy and say nothing else, and say that I'm here for you. Because even during that time when my sister got killed, persons were saying how she was bad, she was this, she was the next thing, but they didn't know. They didn't know the cost of her all. They didn't know what she went through.
mhm.
And that annoyed me. But unfortunately, that's just our cultural norms in our country. We always jump to conclusion without knowing what's happening. And then we say these things and we don't know who we're saying it to. Some people said it to me directly,
Wow.
you know, and
Let's
that's
let,
just
let- yeah, yeah. Okay. Let me just take some time to read some of the comments because they've been coming fast and furiously, and so just a lot of wows and but God and very true ongoing care is needed. Shelley Bella says God is a keeper. He's faithful. Joette Edwards says only by the grace of God. Thank you, Lord, for keeping you, meaning thanking God for keeping you. Janice Johnson says you have to bind the strong man. Gayleen Maynard says, Brenda, generational curses are very real. That is the area God had graced me for, and I give him glory. So, just, I mean, such a powerful, uh, traumatic story, but the strength and the grace that you wear, even now, it's testament to the fact that God is indeed a keeper and a preserver of the hearts and the minds of mankind. You experienced the trauma of losing your sister and brother, niece, nephew, and you're raising your single mother, raising this child on your own. and you're being elevated in the business world, and now you're working on your CPA, and
Yes.
that requires you to travel to go and take the exam. Did you go to Atlanta, or where did you go to take your CPA?
Atlanta. Atlanta,
Okay,
and I did the course in Atlanta, and I did the exam in New Hampshire.
right. So, and while you're away, um, sitting your CPA, something happens to your daughter. Let's talk about that.
Yes. And even that was in 2003. 2003 was a rough year for me because I was sick. I had acid reflux, so I was home for a bit. Uh, and I had taken my exam earlier, and I had passed. One part came close with all the other ones, and because I was still the trauma of it all, I lost my job. Uh, my house was my financial. It was a really tough year. I'm just trying to determine how I was going to make it. But the Lord opened up doors that I was able to go to Atlanta to do my exams. And so I left my daughter at my house at my home with a friend of mine, a girlfriend of mine who kept her. And you know, the day before it happened, I had rededicated my life to God. I rededicated. I said, Father, I just commit everything to you. I said, I'm not looking back. I said, I am sold out for you. Whatever you tell me to do, I will do. I said, as a renewed yes. I said, I come into covenant with you that whatever you would have me to do, I will do it without question. And so when that happened, I was on the floor just crying out to him. And the following day, I got the call that my daughter was raped and I needed to come home. I'm like, I couldn't even process that because my greatest fear was that something would happen to my daughter that I was not able to protect her.
Mm-hmm.
That was my greatest fear. And so it had come to pass to fruition. And I'm like, oh my God. And then on top of that, I financially I was challenged. And I'm like, okay, how to trying to get back to Nassau from Atlanta. But God is so amazing. I came back. I didn't have the funds, but I was able to come back on a first class ticket, come
Mm-hmm.
back home to my daughter. And the thing about it is, what happened is it was somebody that she met at JA. Even though
Mm-hmm.
I had told her not, she know that not to open up the door for anyone, not to open the door. I don't care, not even if it was my brother, not to open the door for anyone, right? And so, the fact that she did that, and she opened the door, and the guy hold at knife point, and he raped her.
And he was a
And
teenager. A
he was
teenager.
he was just 18, just coming off age, 18.
Mm-hmm.
And so she went. She was talking to my cousin's son, and they said, they advised her to these young kids advised her, say, Bernice, call the police and report it. And so she did that. And then the sad thing about it is, I'm not saying that all of our officers are insensitive, but there's a need for sensitivity training with our police officers, and there should be a special unit to deal with rape victims or survivors,
Mm-hmm.
because it was as if they blamed her for what happened to her, 14-year-old, and even the way they were talking to her.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to tell him, I said, no, I said, who's on trial here? Who was raped?
Right.
And then the thing about it is that her case, it never came up until 2018.
And the
2018.
incident happened in 2003.
Yes.
Wow.
Okay. And when they called, they didn't even call me. They called my girlfriend. She gave them my number. They had my number, but they still didn't call me. And then we had some persons who heard about it, and they said, oh, they'll try to see how they can assist in all of that stuff. But see, the thing about it, we have to stop at lip service, because there are so many women who have been abused, who've been raped on date raped, and they don't talk about it because of the humiliation, the embarrassment. And then also
Yeah.
it's like you're on trial when you report it. And there's not enough support system in place to assist. And there's no transitional or shelters so that they can flee and go to some place for safety. And so what has happened with my daughter is, that started with alcohol abuse and smoking cigarettes, and it's
Mhm.
like all of a sudden this is a child that was always joyful, was always, full of life and confidence, and all of a sudden, she withdrew, and so and she's still going through her challenges. Yes, she did counseling. She just did counseling, another set of counseling a few years back, and she's still having challenges.
Sure.
She's still having
Mhm.
challenges, and I felt so guilty, like I failed her as a mother. I just felt guilty as a Lord, but the Lord had to tell me, no, I did what it is that I was supposed to do, and that I must release her, that He's going to bring the healing. And
Right.
so, I just try to give her that support, you know,
Mhm.
because at the end of the day, even though things may happen to us that's not right, unfair, injustices that may happen, we still have to take a hold of our lives.
Yeah.
I mean, and she's doing pretty well in her job, she's doing good, but she still have her challenges. And it is sad. And many of our children sometimes, that's why they're you see them, they're angry, they lash out, okay, or they become promiscuous, or they start to substance abuse. It's because of some of these things. And we have, as parents, as older women, older men, we have to speak to our children. We have to
Mhm.
share our stories, you know, because you can talk to a person on each household. Someone's been affected by molestation, rape, incest. And that's the great elephant in the room that we don't address, because the family be shamed, or we don't want to call this, and there's always somebody who was placed, who's in charge of person's safety and protection, a fiduciary position to take care of them, and they abuse that position. They
Mhm.
abuse that trust relationship to take
Mhm.
care of those that in their care. But we don't do it. We don't do enough. We don't do
Mhm.
enough. And
So,
so, yes, getting the awareness out there, but there has to be more. There has to be more action. There's not even sufficient family courts to address these matters in a timely manner. And so all of these things that we have to push for policies and advocate so that these things can come into place. And he who feels it knows it. And
yeah.
no one is not left where they're not going to be touched by it. Today may be me, tomorrow may be you. We don't want to wait until then.
Right. Right. So the case came up in 2018. Where is it now?
The people did not call me. So waiting for them to call me. I called, I had spoken with someone at the crisis center. One of the lawyers there was supposed to check into it. Nothing's happened. And the thing about it is, you're betwixt and between, determining whether to evoke all of these feelings and address it. And see, the other problem was that this young man, he was politically connected.
Mm.
Friends, families, lovers. Okay. And so that what it has hampered the case. And
Mhm.
so nothing has happened as yet. I'm still waiting.
That's absolutely incredible. So you said a lot about what needs to happen, new legislation, laws passed, advocacy for, of course, women and children, and what's happening with them. The fact that we need more safe houses for people if they want to get out of abusive relationships to go to safe houses.
Wouldn't like to go to see Mom.
Just so many things. Okay, you're back. Just so many things. You said it in that particular talk. Now let's shift because experience even with what has happened with your daughter and the advocacy and the things in the system, the wrongs in the system that you yourself have experienced, experiential things. You decided to offer yourself at some point as a political candidate, and you made an offer to yourself in politics. Let's talk about the choice to be a part of the solution, in essence, because I can tell you one thing: I admire anyone who steps into that position um, to offer themselves, because the nature of politics makes strange bedfellows in the Bahamas and
Yes.
across the world, and just the nature. So, number one, it's commendable that you would even offer yourself, considering you could have easily taken a position to say, you know what, I have enough trouble of my own. I don't know if I want to expose myself to the behind the scene. And for me, working from the standpoint of a publicist and being involved in various campaigns from a professional standpoint, I understand some inner workings. But you did it. You stepped forward. First, what made you decide to first of all say, you know what, I'm going to be a part of the solution?
So let's say this. I was never interested in politics. From a child, I was never interested in politics. I never took, side. I was not persuaded to PLP or FNM. My thing, it was about the country, about my Bahamian people, about making our country a better place. But my plans was never to enter frontline politics. As a matter of fact, my plans was to get out of Dodge, to get out of this country, and when I leave this country, not to return, right? But Father God had a different plan for me. He took me on a tour of duty, I would like to say. Yeah, I went to Amsterdam, and then I went to Cayman. I was through Europe, and he brought me back home, and he said the work that he has for me to do is here in the Bahamas. I was most disappointed. I was like, God, seriously? Why me? I'm like, gosh. And so, okay, so I thought, okay, then what I'll do, because I know he said that it was important for unity amongst the small parties, right? So I went, I spoke to all of the small splinter parties and said that God said, it's time for unify yourself. But the problem is that everybody wants to lead. No one wants to follow. My God, and so we have a leadership crisis in our nation. And so I'm like, okay, God. And then at the same time, at my church, we were talking about the 7 mountains of influence. And so my pastor he said to us, now you must determine and pray to God to see what pillar he's calling you to. So I did that, and he coming back with government, right? So fine, all right. So I said, okay, all right, Lord. And so I was doing a prayer class with Apostle Gail, Trinity of Praise, and minding my business, the class had ended. She asked for a call for persons to come for prayer. I said, I had enough prayer. I don't need to go up. And she said it 3 times. So I know when anytime something said 3 times and I'm there, I know God talking to me, right? So I'm like, okay, God, all right then. Okay, let me go up. So I went up, and she said, because I had said, several persons came to me, said, Brenda, why don't you run? I said, no. I'll be in the background. I will support. I'll be the supporting act. I will help you. I will do whatever it is, administrate whatever. I will do that. But front lines, that is not for Brenda T. I said, no, I'm not called to that. I'm not called to that. And so when I went up for the prayer, right, she said to me, woman of God, God has called you for such a time as this. He said to stop questioning him and get about the work he's called you to do in this nation. I started crying again. I'm like, God, okay. I mean, like, okay, because I know that I have to obey, and obedience is not partial obedience, and delayed obedience is not obedience. We have to do it in God's timing. And I'm like, oh my God. So I knew I had no choice, but I still thought he was testing my obedience. So in 2012, I ran for the Bahamas Constitution Party, because for that party and what they had stand for, was closely linked to what it is that God was saying. And so I ran in Seabreeze, and I had 3 months to prepare to go and campaign. And for me, it was like evangelism, right?
Mm,
So I had my prayer team, my young people with me, and we went door to door. We were praying for people. So many people are hurting out there. They are in despair. They are oppressed, depressed, stressed out, frustrated. And I'm like,
mm,
oh my God. And so we had an opportunity. We prayed for persons. And then also to what I did, it was educational for them too. Like I said to them, I said, let us not look at party colors. Let us not look at FNM PLP. Let us look at the individual who comes to us,
mhm,
and and see what it is that they're about. Is this person, when they get elected and go into the hollow house of parliament, the house of assembly, will they represent you? Will they represent you? Will they fight for you and the cause for you, your family, your community, and the nation at large? I said, that's all I want. I said, allow God to direct you. Pray about it before you make that decision. But do not let the decision be because of color, because of party, right? And so I mean, for me, that was, I was, excited, and I did repent too, because I really loved it. I really loved working with the people. My heart went for the people. My heart was
mm,
about the people. I enjoyed doing it. So I'm telling you, I went to work. I went to work at 7, got off at 3, and from 3 until 10 o'clock in the night, I walked the streets. I went to all of those houses, almost 6,000 houses in the Seabreeze constituency.
mhm,
I set up a campaign office as well, and I worked there. And I worked, and the thing about it is, I wasn't even thinking about, oh, if I get elected. That was not even it. The mandate God tell me to go. And so
mhm,
someone after the election, someone said to me, oh, did you think he was going to win? So I said to them, I said, wow, I said, victory comes in different forms. It all depends on what your mandate was. I said, and I'm victorious. So they looked at me as if I was crazy.
What were your takeaways from that first experience? What were your takeaways about politics, about the nation? I mean, what were your takeaways?
The takeaways is that, first of all, that I didn't understand how persons can go campaigning and see the state that people are in and don't do anything about it. Do not make sure that the people's voice is being heard in parliament, that they're actually fighting on behalf of the
Mm,
people, and that they actually listen to what it is that people want. See, the thing about it is, you can come into my constituency and you can say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, but the constituents have to be actively involved, because what may be a good thing is not necessarily the right thing for that community. And only
mhm,
way to know that, if you don't live in that area, is to hear it from the people. And so we, the people, have to be involved. We are change agents. We have to be. And we have to put pressure on those who we elect to ensure that they do what it is that they campaign on. And we
mhm,
have to let them know this is what we need. And then what I realized as well, the corruption, because like when we went to one of the polling divisions, I went inside to check on, just to see what was happening. They tell me I have to get out. I didn't argue, because I said, let me be respectful. No, I said, let
as
me
a
be respectful.
candidate, you
Yes,
were a
yeah,
candidate, and they told
yeah,
you you had to get out.
yeah. So I stepped out. And immediately as I stepped out, Mr. Carl Bettel stepped in. And as he stepped in, I stepped in behind him. And they proceeded to say to me, oh, no, miss, didn't you hear us? I said, no, no. Surely, if Mr. Bethel could be in here, I can too, unless there's separate and distinct rules for certain candidates, because I'm a candidate myself. I said,
Mhm,
is there a different rule for him and for me? He turned flush red and said, oh, Miss Harris, you're quite correct. I said, I know, sir, but thank you for recognizing that. I
mhm,
said, I know my rights. I said, earlier I was just respecting because you all said to step outside.
mhm,
I said, but no. And it was just crazy the way that they did it. And so and they take it so, I mean, yes, you take it seriously, but you take it seriously for the change of the nation. But it was like for personal gain. And it
mhm,
was just so sad. And then after the 2012, then here comes, I figured that, okay, God is pleased. I've done my due. I did my civil responsibility. I stepped up. And then here's that voice telling me, no, 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 no. And then he said he wanted me to go on Bain and Grandstown. I said, Bain and Grandstown? Okay. And so I was telling my grandniece. And so my grandniece said to me, because her father's from Bain and Grandstown, she normally spent some time. She said, oh, no, Annie, you can't go there. You can't go there. So that place dangerous. You don't want to go there, Annie. So for a minute, some fear came over me. And I'm like, oh my God, like all of a sudden, like reality. But the thing about it, I was on my way to prayer meeting to church. And listen, nobody know what the Lord has said to me because I hadn't shared it as yet. One of the lead prayer warriors, intercessors, she said to me, she came to me, she said, Sister Brenda, the Lord said he called you to be in Grandstown. Do not fear. Be of good courage. He's with you. And so I'm like, okay. And so God he told me exactly what to do. So I was in there like 4.5 years working in Bain and Grandstown. I did workshops. I had community center where I work with the schools. I work with the churches for rental classes. I had computer classes. We did food drives. We did clothing drives. I just connected. People loved me. I love them. And so the thing about it, it dispels what people say that you have to go in there and get a report of the people. Because what I realized is this, because politicians have been playing games, conniving and bribing and corrupt with the people now are now playing the games before the politician played on them. And it's their demise. Because when you go into the homes, you see the state. Basic infrastructure and utilities in that community. And being in Grandstown is the foundation of our nation. That's where all of our leaders came from. It's very historical.
Yes.
And so it's just sad that nothing has been done. The same thing, like Jesus, from back in the 1950s, 1960s, nothing has really changed. You have people don't have, they don't run in water and supplies. I went to there was this elderly lady that I helped her. When I took the trolley, I went to the pump, get the water for her and all that stuff. And then people say all these snide remarks. Oh, yeah, you're just trying to have a photo up. But no, first of all, they shouldn't be subjected to that in this 21st century. There should be running water. You should have utilities. You should be able to have bathrooms. People don't have bathrooms. This guy, he was about 45. He took me around a winding path through some bushes to where he lived, and he said, this is where I live. All I want to do, I just want a job so that I can do my part. I can pay my bills. I can pay my share. I was on top of the roofs talking to people. I was on the ground working with the people. I was helping where I can. Because before you can lead a people, you have to connect to, you have to know that you have to meet them at the point of their need in order to move them forward so that they can see. Because if you come to me, I'm hungry, I need to take care of my child, I need to see how my child, they have clothes and uniform for school, and you come into me, you want me to vote? Or no, they can't hear you because their basic needs need to be fulfilled. And that's a general issue in our nation. And with this coronavirus, it has enhanced, it has increased. I work closely with the Bain Grandstown Association with Dr. Reverend C.B. Moss, where we give out almost 5,000 grocery bags, and we did a breakfast in that community, And so he works with some of the other churches. Apostle Overseer Sharon Nan, she does the same thing. Salem, Hewlin, Pastor Hewlin Roll, they do all of these things, transfiguration, they do that. But we have to get to the point where we empower our people, we teach them how to fish so that they're able to take care of themselves, they're empowered, they're developed so that they can go there and they can contribute back to our nation. But it takes all of us. It takes all of us. Because in this move that God is about to do in this new season, God is raising up his people, the remnant. He's raising them up in this season because he's doing it his way. He said he can't trust the F&M, he can't trust the PLP, and he can't trust the church. So he's doing it himself.
So where do you see yourself? Because in the Bahamas, 2022 is another general election cycle. As a matter of fact, people have already overtly started campaigning as well. Do you see yourself um, heading to offering yourself again as a candidate or offering support for someone else who may be a candidate? Do you see yourself in the role as an advocate or a politician?
Both, because God is still, He is confirmed. I'm gone, but I will be running independent. In 2017, I ran as a Democratic National Alliance, but in 2022, God's willing, I'll be running as an independent candidate unless God says otherwise, because He told me that I'm not FNMPLP. I'm about kingdom business. And so in this season, what He is, because even afterwards, I was devastated. I was devastated, not that I was not elected to parliament. I was devastated that the people vote against themselves, right? Because
Exposure.
they're no better position than they were before. Nothing has changed.
Mhm.
Yes, there have been some good things that has happened, and there's good things that happen in all administration. However, if we look at governance, if we look at where we are in our nation, and if we look at other nations, there is no reason why we are at this point. The stop, review, and cancel. The lack of a
Mhm.
national development plan. What is the vision of our country? Is it just sunshine and sea? Is that it? We do not appreciate our number one natural resource, and that's our people. That's our
Mhm.
people. And so if we develop and support our people, give them access, make sure that, let the legislators legislate, create policies and laws that creates the access and the platform so that people can be empowered, so that there is equity, that they have a stake in their nation. But if we don't do that, we continue to create a greater divide between the haves and the have not. And so at the
Mhm.
end of the day, that's why the role of the people, we have to participate. What we do as Bahamians, we will call in to a talk show, we'll complain. We'll complain about this, we complain about that. But what I say to those persons, listen to me under the sound of my voice, do not complain. Put paper to pen, write to your MP, write to the Prime Minister. And this is what I want to see. Write
Mhm.
petitions. If you have a petition and you support it, write it. What are the things that you're seeing that that that
Mhm.
that that really, really annoys you? What are the challenges and what is the solution? Because I say to you that every challenge that we have in our nation, we have somebody in our nation who have the solution to that, have the answer to how we can address it. But we are not listening to our people because, unfortunately, from my perspective and my humble opinion, our leaders are disconnected. They don't have love for the people. I don't think they don't believe in the Bahamian people. What happened to Bahamianization? I am not opposed
Mhm.
to foreign direct investors. I'm not opposed to migrants, but let first be first. Just like the Lord said, render unto Caesar what is Caesar. So render
Mhm.
unto the Bahamians what is for the Bahamians, and
So
allow the Bahamians to not be. They have to not be so laid back and expect that it will drop in our laps. It requires us to be propelled into action.
so you will offer yourself again in the Bain and Grantstown area as an
Yes,
independent.
yes, ma'am. I will.
What?
I shall. Yes, ma'am. I will.
Yes. Okay. What do you see? And thank you for sharing that. What do you see as, should you have the opportunity to represent these people? I don't want to ask you, what do you see? Let me rephrase that. What is one of the first things that you would tackle as a representative for that area?
One of the
What do
first
you
things
think
that
is a priority? Yeah.
Yeah, the first thing that I would do really is the infrastructure. And that's not difficult with regards to making sure that all houses have water and light, running water and light in that area. That's not difficult. And so I don't understand why it is that they don't have that. That would be one of the first things. And also too, with being in Grandstown, being a historical community, to ensure that there are so many historical buildings, make sure that they're renovated so that we can bring so that persons are able to have entrepreneurship, okay,
Mhm.
so that they can restore these places, so that we can now put on display our history. And then not only that, we want to empower the people, because there are many persons in being in Grantstown. They have talents, they're technical abilities, with their plumbers, their carpenters, they're musicians, they're athletes. And so we want to put them on display. And then what's so amazing is being in Grantstown is surrounded on at the north, you have Bay Street.
Mhm.
Then on Poinciana Drive, you have the University of the Bahamas. And so this area, with all of this, with the university and downtown commerce, it should not be in the state that it is. And so we're looking at even the housing
Mhm.
and backyard farming. There's so many different things that can be done, but it will take the community to build. And what I love about being in Grantstown is the people are close knitted. No matter what people may say, try to make it look, have them disdain or cast out, but they really are close knitted, family oriented community. Yes, some persons have moved out, and we have a lot of migrants in the area. However, there are still a good populace of Bahamians who've been in that area from time immemorial, and they just need assistance. They just need access. They need
This
access.
is your passion is evident and it's contagious. And I have no doubt that as you continue to follow the directives of the Holy Spirit, He definitely will do what He said He will do in your life. We are almost at the end of the show, and I have not even gotten to so many other things that I needed to talk about, but I'm going to have to wrap up because we'll be on forever. And I commit to the 90 minutes. But in the closing moments, I want you to talk about Women United in Prayer and the mandate for that, so that people can understand a little bit about what you've been doing for the past how many days.
230 days. 230 days. So the Lord is just so amazing in the things that He do, and He has such a sense of humor, and I just love my Father. And so in May 2020, when the government determined that they were going to put together an economic committee, I determined with a few persons that we would also do a economic advisory group, so that we can look at other ways, instead of depending upon tourism, to see, looking at our natural resources. And within that committee, there was a young lady. Her name is Natasha Johnson, who resides in Port St. Lucie in Florida. And the Lord spoke to her, and she came to me. She said, Sister Brenda, the Lord told me to come to the leaders of the group, in particular you, and said to gather the women to pray for 3 days of prayer and fasting. So I smiled, because I was having a little challenge getting up in the morning. I got married in February 2018. And so it's been really difficult trying to balance that. And I'm also the primary caretaker for my mom. So it's a little difficult, but nonetheless, I was praying to Lord. I said, Lord, help me I need to get in, because I need to hear what it is that you're saying in order for me to go, because I can't go if you don't go with me, if you don't go before me, you know? And so when he said that, I smiled. I said, okay. So I meditated upon that. And then I hear the whisper, 700 days. I'm like, 700 days? Really, Lord? And I'm like, okay. So I spoke to my husband, and I said, okay. And so we wrote out the Monday, 700 days praying over the 7 mountains, which includes the church and religion, government, business, education, the family, media, arts, and entertainment. And as we went along, it was to gather all the women across the diaspora and those internationally as well. So we have persons from Canada, the UK, and parts of the US, and even in some of the Caribbean islands. And what is really significant about it is we have women from Grand Bahama in the north to Inagua in the south. So what the Lord has done, He's given us 10 regions, which cover region 1 is Abaco, region 2 is Andres, Bimini, and the Berry Island, region 3 is Grand Bahama, region 4 is Eleuthera, region 5 New Providence, region 6 Exuma, region 7 Cat Island, region 8 is Rumkey, uh, Long Island, Long Island. And
Mhm.
and region 9 is Auckland's Crooked Islands and Lone Key, and region 10 is Ragged Island in Naga and Meguana. And so we have women who are connected to those islands. Either they are on the island, or they are descendants of that island, or they had to come up to New Providence for employment. But nonetheless, we are spread out over the 700 islands, rocks, and keys. And it's amazing, God said 700 days. And that takes us right to May 10, 2022, on the eve of the last election. And the
Mhm.
700 representing the 700 rocks and keys, and seven, the number of completion. And so, and the
Mhm.
only two prerequisites is that we love the Lord and we love the Bahamas. And God He said that He is handpicking the women, He's sending them in. And so, what it is about a new Bahamas. It's about a new Bahamas. And so, during our prayer times, He is giving us divine strategies from the throne of heaven as to how to transform our nation. And so I'm excited about what God is doing every morning. Up to we have like 130, women. Yesterday we had a special guest on, Apostle Benjamin Smith, who spoke to the women of the nation. We had about 250 women on our call yesterday, and let me tell you, God is doing a work. And when people or people would say, especially the men would say, that women, we can't get together, and yeah, for some, that's there's some truth in that. However, with God at the center, my God, He is doing it Himself. It's not about me. It's not about a group of persons, because it's about the diversity of gifts, the diversity in the voices. And this being the decade of the mouth, we can no longer be silenced, because in our womb we carry a seed that will not be aborted. And so, as women, we have to know what it is that God has called us to. It's time for us to arise, to be awakened to the call that God has called us to, and to join hands, because our nation is crying out. Our children, the blood of our children are in the streets. And if we don't do something, who will? And so I just want to say to the women, please join us. We meet daily at 5 a.m. on Zoom, Women United in Prayer. You can send me a WhatsApp, 357-7453, and I will send you the Zoom link. Join us. Join us in prayer.
Say the number one more time. I'll type it in the chat. 357.
357-7453. So join us in the morning. Join us, and you don't have to come every day if you don't, but allow the Lord to use you. It's time now for us to be propelled into action. Faith without works is dead. We have to now use our faith muscle, and we have to be propelled into action. This is our country, and like Celine said, if we have to fight for it, we have to fight. You have to be willing to fight for it. Otherwise, you don't deserve to have it. And we see the state that we are in, and we are a blessed nation. God has separated us apart unto Himself, a holy nation, to be a beacon to the world. So I encourage you, ladies, under the sound of my voice, allow the Lord to use you. Surrender to His Lordship, because He has great things in store for our nation, and He needs you.
Brenda
Thank you.
Harris-Pinder, thank you so much for swerving with me tonight. Do take advantage of it 7 days a week. Every now and then I pop in and join them for the session, but I am encouraged about what I've heard from you tonight, and my sincere prayer is that God will do just what He said He will do in your life, and
Amen.
that you will have that opportunity to serve your country at the level that we need people with your passion, with your drive, with your desire for service, with your understanding of what service is all about. We need those types of people sitting in the halls of parliament. So we wish you Godspeed, and we just pray that you continue to be obedient to the mandate, because that's your responsibility, to be obedient. He already has the plan set in motion. You just need to be in the right place at the right time on that path to destiny. And as you know, I've shared with you, destiny helpers are waiting to
Amen.
help you with this call. So thank you, all of you, for swerving with me tonight. I didn't get a chance to go through the lightning round and so many other things. You have to come back again, because there's so much more to discuss and There are so many things. When you get an opportunity, go through the comments and see what people have been saying, because they have been many. So once again, thank all of you for joining us tonight. Remember, next month is the month for relationships. We're talking love with singles, with multi-generational couples, with quote unquote relationships experts. And so you want to pop in at some point and just hear what's happening next month on Swerve. And so, once again, thank you so much for joining. I'm Miranda. Good night and God bless.
Thank you.